America didn't just build apartment complexes, it built entire cities in concrete, towers, superblocks, schools, shopping centers, and thousands of apartments at a time. Some became affordable housing lifelines, others became national symbols of urban failure. Today, we're counting down the 10 largest housing megaprojects in America and putting the dream of mass housing on trial. A few ground rules. This list is ranked by approximate unit count. Not every project here is traditional public housing. Some are cooperatives, some are federally assisted, some are middle-income planned communities. They're all here because they represent the largest experiments in American mass housing. And this is not a simple story. Big didn't automatically mean bad. What mattered was design, yes, but also segregation, funding, maintenance, and whether residents had any real shot at stability. Let's count it down. Number 10 takes us to the Bronx, Castle Hill Houses, one of NYCHA's major developments in a borough that has more public housing than almost anywhere else in America. Castle Hill is not the most famous project on this list, but that's almost the point. It still stands. It still houses thousands of people in a real community. Public housing is not only a demolition story. For millions of Americans, it has been, and remains, home. But if number 10 shows public housing still standing, number 9 shows a different model entirely. Penn South, the Mutual Redevelopment Houses, sits in Chelsea, Manhattan. Built in the early 1960s with backing from the Garment Workers Union, not public housing, a limited equity cooperative where residents own shares and agree to price controls that keep apartments affordable long-term. Penn South was an experiment in labor-backed housing, the idea that working people deserved not just a roof, but a stake. Residents have stayed for decades. The buildings are maintained. At nearly 2,800 units in the middle of Manhattan, it proves large-scale affordable housing didn't have to end in crisis. And from there, we go to one of the most infamous housing projects ever built, Pruitt Igoe, St. Louis. 33 towers, nearly 2,900 units, designed by Minoru Yamasaki, the same architect who later designed the World Trade Center, demolished tower by tower between 1972 and 1976. The demolition footage became one of the most replayed images in American architecture history. For decades, Pruitt Igoe was treated as proof that towers in the park housing was inherently doomed. But here's what that story leaves out. Pruitt Igoe was built as St. Louis was hemorrhaging population. Federal mortgage subsidies sent white residents to the suburbs while explicitly excluding black families. The tax base collapsed. Maintenance budgets were slashed. Elevators broke and stayed broken. Was the design flawed? Yes. But design didn't abandon Pruitt Igoe. Policy did. Number 7 brings us to Brooklyn, a peninsula cut off from the rest of the borough by highways, rail yards, and water. Red Hook Houses, Brooklyn's largest NYCHA development. Nearly 2,900 units. Its location tells you a lot about how public housing was sited, not in the best neighborhoods, not near the best transit, but on leftover land, the industrial edges, the flood zones. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy made that geography catastrophic. Red Hook flooded. Boilers failed. Residents went weeks without heat and power. Public housing is infrastructure. Pipes, boilers, elevators, drainage. All of it aging, all of it underfunded. Red Hook Houses is still there, still waiting for the investment that would make it resilient. Number 6 is often called the largest public housing development in North America. Right across the East River from Midtown Manhattan. Queensbridge Houses. Over 3,100 units, built in the late 1930s. Buildings arranged in a distinctive Y-shaped pattern across a massive superblock in Long Island City, Queens. Queensbridge has faced the same pressures as every large NYCHA development. Deferred maintenance, concentrated poverty, underfunding. But it has also produced something no policy document could plan, a culture. Queensbridge is one of the birthplaces of New York hip-hop. The people who lived here built communities, art, and identity, often in spite of the conditions, not because of them. Number 5. Chicago, a name that became synonymous with concentrated urban poverty. Robert Taylor Homes, 28 identical high-rises stretching 2 miles along State Street on the south side, over 4,300 units. When it opened in the early 1960s, it was the largest public housing project in the United States. Robert Taylor Homes was built almost entirely for black families, at a time when Chicago's political machine was deliberately using public housing to contain black residents in specific neighborhoods. Poverty was concentrated at a scale that guaranteed dysfunction. Maintenance collapsed, and the city looked the other way for decades. The residents were not the problem. They were the people left behind by a system that built housing as a tool of segregation, and then walked away. The towers came down between 1998 and 2007. Many former residents were simply displaced. But the next project proves that massive scale did not always mean collapse. Starrett City, now called Spring Creek Towers, sits at the eastern edge of Brooklyn near Jamaica Bay. Nearly 5,800 units, federally assisted, built in the 1970s, still standing as one of the largest apartment complexes in the country. Designed as a self-contained world, towers, schools, shopping, parking, isolated from the surrounding city. Critics called it a ghetto by another name. Supporters called it a working community that delivered affordable housing for decades. The truth is somewhere in between, but a 5,800 unit complex that still functions after 50 years is worth understanding, not just dismissing. We're in the top 3, and we're going somewhere that doesn't fit neatly into any category. Stuyvesant Town, Peter Cooper Village. Over 11,000 units on 80 acres of Manhattan's East Side, built by Metropolitan Life and completed in 1947. Not public housing, but one of the most consequential modernist housing megaprojects in American history. Robert Moses-era urban renewal made real. Entire city blocks cleared, thousands of existing residents displaced. In their place, a superblock of towers in the park for returning veterans, a vision of modern, rational, middle-class urban life. Also, for years, explicitly segregated. Metropolitan Life refused to rent to black families until legal pressure forced a change. Today, Stuyvesant Town is a battleground over affordability, private equity, rent stabilization, and who gets to live in Manhattan. The towers are still there. The debate never ended. Number 2. Back to the Bronx, and a place that was never public housing, but helped define what American mass housing could look like. Parkchester, built by Metropolitan Life between 1938 and 1942, roughly 12,000 units across 129 buildings on 129 acres, a complete self-contained neighborhood, landscaped courtyards, commercial streets, its own internal logic. Like Stuyvesant Town, it was racially segregated until the law forced it to change. But Parkchester endured. It transitioned to cooperative ownership. It survived the Bronx's catastrophic decline in the 1970s. Today, it remains one of the largest intact planned housing communities in the country. Design matters, but so does investment. Parkchester got both. And here we are. Number 1. The biggest, the most audacious experiment in American mass housing. Co-op City, Northeast Bronx. Approximately 15,000 units across 35 high-rise towers and over 200 townhouses. Home to roughly 50,000 people. Built between 1968 and 1973 under New York State's Mitchell-Lama program. A limited equity cooperative, not traditional public housing. Co-op City is not just a housing project, it is a city. Its own roads, schools, shopping centers, power plant, bus routes, zip code. Larger than most American cities, the largest cooperative housing development in the world. It has had its crises, a famous rent strike in the 1970s, structural issues, financial instability. And it has had its triumphs, housing working-class Bronx families for over 50 years through every economic storm. If a housing development becomes large enough to function as its own municipality, is it still a housing project? Or is it urban planning at the scale of a city? And what does that tell us about what America could have built, if it had chosen to? After 10 entries, the verdict is complicated. Size alone did not doom these places. The worst failures happened when massive scale combined with racial segregation, poverty concentration, chronic underfunding, and political abandonment. Modernist design could be cold and isolating. Those were real flaws. But policy choices did more damage than concrete ever could. The question was never just whether towers could work. The real question was whether America was willing to maintain the cities it built for working people. Because when you build housing for thousands of families and then starve those places of repairs, services, and opportunity, the failure is not architecture. The failure is policy. If you want more infrastructure cases like this, subscribe. This channel is putting the built environment on trial.